for Monday, 14th, 2021. I'd like to ask the board, since we do have some remote participants and obviously a large audience, make sure you speak up when we're speaking. Try and remember as far as catching us on the Zoom recording, or if we're picking up well enough, just let us know if we're having any issues. I see Mr. Smith and Mr. Kohler are remote, so welcome, gentlemen. I'll probably just call on you individually when it's time for votes and get a verbal. So I can see you currently, Mr. Smith, but I do not see Mr. Kohler from a video standpoint. So, all right, the first item on the agenda is the approval of minutes from the April 12th, 2021 meeting.
Chairman,
Move to approve the minutes.
yes, move to approve. Second.
Motion by Mr. Foster, second by Mrs. Peters. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Mr. Smith?
Yes.
And Mr. Kohler?
Yes.
Okay, motion carries 5-0. Special request continuances. I understand we do have a request for a continuance.
Yes, for docket number 2021-009, as Mr. Lesky is remotely.
Okay, Mr. Lesky, hello, sir. You want to tell us about your request for the continuance?
Yeah, to cut to the quick, I suppose, at the bottom of the third page in our staff report, under summary and proposed conditions, you'll notice that the second sentence says that the petitioner planned to convert her garage in order to facilitate this use, and that wasn't the plan. So we've had a communication problem, I think, with the planning department for over a month and a half. We just found out that we were not on the same page they were when we got this staff report on Wednesday. So we're still answering a lot of questions about petitioner's actual plans, which don't have anything to do with housing the operation in her garage.
Okay. So are you wanting to move to the next meeting, which would be the 28th, or further?
I would like to think we'd wrap it up by the 28th, but I'd hate to come back and ask for another continuance. So I think, to play it safe, maybe 1 month out.
So the June 12th? July, sorry. Thank you. July 12th. All right, I'll take a motion to continue BZA 2021-009 to July 12th.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Foster, second by Ms. Peters. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Mr. Smith?
Yes.
And Mr. Kohler?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. Okay, we will hear you on the 12th.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, any other special requests or continuances? Okay. Findings of fact, take final action on BZA 2021-007, please.
Chairman, in consideration of statutory criteria, I move that we adopt the written findings of fact as presented, incorporating the evidence submitted into the record as our final decision. The final action for variance petition number BZA 2021-007.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Peters, by Mr. Foster. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Mr. Smith?
Yes.
And Mr. Kohler?
Yes.
Okay, motion carries 5-0. No old business. Any old business from the floor? Seeing none, we move on to new business, and that first item will be BZA 2021-008. It's a dimensional variance request by Sign Solutions for 173 East Broadway Street. Who is wishing to speak for, against, or in general for this petition? If you are, please stand up and be sworn in by our secretary. Okay.
Please raise your hand. Please swear to
All right, state your name and address for the record, please.
I am Lee Faulkner. She wants the shop address,
Yes, that's fine.
and it's 505 Commerce Drive, Parkway West.
Okay, tell us why you're here, Mr. Faulkner.
All right. We're here to request a variance, vacation for the variance for a wall sign for the property located there. The issue is the current ordinance will not let me have a projecting wall sign. And quite honestly, the building itself that we were, well, honestly, when I first was designing this, I was working off the code that the ordinance that you had passed in 2017, which allowed a projecting wall sign under industrial zone. So when I was told that it didn't meet the current ordinance, I was amazed. But the current ordinance does not allow it. It also allows me to have a monument sign. But the problem is the building, the setback to the building is only like 15, 14 foot back from the right of way. Got a 10-foot setback from that, and then I've only got, say, 4 to 5 foot between that and the building. You've also got a 6-foot height requirement, and then you've got a base requirement of no less than 2 foot. So I basically got a 4 foot by 4 foot monument sign that I could put on the property, which is not adequate at all for this type of situation. If you saw any of the layouts of the building itself, the architectural design of the building is full of windows. It does not allow for any type of real wall signs to be placed out there. So really the only logical solution is to put a projecting wall sign that would have been allowed in the prior ordinance. So there's, in a nutshell, what we're trying to work against here.
Okay, do you have the staff report or your answers to the statutory criteria?
I do.
We'll need to walk through those and get them on the record, and I'll get you started, and then if you can just respond with the answers you've provided.
Sure.
Number 1, the approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, or general welfare of the community because?
The projecting plate sign would not cause any danger, would be well out of the way of traffic. The plate sign would help quickly direct clients to the customer entrance of the building, which is located in the northwest corner of the building where the proposed plate sign would be installed.
And number 2, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner because?
The projecting blade sign will complement and enhance the building, both design and placement. Adjacent properties, both west and south of this property, which are OT, are allowed projecting blade signs.
Mr. Faulkner, can I make one clarification? Because in the report, it says east and south, and you stated west and south.
East and south.
Okay, it is east and south. Yep, thank you. And number 3, the strict application of the terms of the zoning ordinance will result in practical difficulties in the use of the property because?
Due to the setback of the building for right of way, approximately 14 foot, freestanding sign is not a good solution for this particular site. Either a wall size placed on the east or west walls due to visibility from the street and location of the client's or customer's entrance to the building. The north elevation of this building features multiple windows to such a degree that a flush mounted wall sign is not able to be used in a manner that is attractive to the building or the surrounding neighborhood. This is a multi-tenant building and businesses will suffer hardship without proper identification.
Okay, and then number 4 I'll take, which is the structure is not regulated under Indiana Code 8-21-10-3 for hazard air navigation. You familiar with the staff's recommendations? I'll read through them and then make sure you have no issue there. So number 1, a sign permit application will need to be completed and approved for the projecting blade sign. Number 2, the sign must follow GMC Chapter 10, Division 3, Section 10-3-8 signage, K General Regulations 5 sign illumination standards, so that's the lighting of the sign. And then number 3, the sign may be illuminated from 5 a.m. until 11 p.m. or a half hour past the close of business of the facility being identified or advertised, whichever is later. Okay. Anything else before I close public hearing? Right. Once again, anyone else to speak for or against this? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and open it up to the board members. Mr. Foster?
I have no questions.
Ms. Peters?
No questions.
Mr. Smith?
No questions from me. Thank you.
Mr. Pollard?
No questions.
I do not have any questions either. Really, the only thing would be around the lighting that was identified in the recommendations. So, okay. With that, I'll take them. Are all the notices in order?
Yes, they are. Copies are in the file.
I'll take a motion to adopt all those into the file.
Mr. Chairman, I move we admit the evidence presented in regard to this matter, including all notices, receipts, maps, photographs, written documents, petitioner's application and attachments, petitioner's detailed statement of reasons, staff report prepared by the planning department, certified copies of the zoning ordinance and comprehensive plan, testimony of the petitioner, city planning staff, and any demonstrators, and all other exhibits presented by the oral or written consideration by this board in regard to this petition, and include the testimony of those present this evening.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Foster, second by Ms. Peters. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Mr. Smith?
Yes.
And Mr. Polar?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. I will take a motion on the docket itself.
Chairman, I recommend that we approve the request for the waiver with the conditions indicated in the staff report.
And that's 3 total.
Yes.
A motion?
Second.
Second by Mr. Foster. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Mr. Smith?
Yes.
And Mr. Polar?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. We will take final action at the next meeting, but you're good to proceed.
Thank you very much.
Need one more motion.
Yeah, I do need one more motion as well. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, having considered statutory criteria, I move that we direct the Corporation Counsel's Office to draft written findings of fact regarding our decision on the variance request presented in petition number 2021-08. Said findings specifically incorporate staff report and evidence submitted into the record for consideration and adoption by the Board of Zoning Appeals as a final decision and final action regarding the petition at our next meeting.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Foster, second by Ms. Peters. All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Polar?
Yes.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. Now, you're good to go. We'll finalize it next meeting. Thank you, Mr. Faulkner. Okay, next up is DZA 2021-12 and -13, which is a use variance by K-Wash Real Estate, as well at 49 Mercator Drive, as well as a dimensional variance by the same. So we'll start with number 12. All those wishing to speak on behalf of this docket, please stand and be sworn in by our secretary.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or intend to be some perjury that testimony about to give is true to the best of your knowledge?
All right, name and address for the record.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening. My name is Brian Toohey. My address is 50 South Meridian, and I'm here representing the Bowman Family Holdings and the K West Real Estate Limited Liability Company, which is a Kopetsky family company, in this petition for a variance of use and a companion petition for variance of development standards. Would you like me to do the hearings together? Or would you like me to?
I think we'll keep them separate. There might be some repetition as a result, but we'll start with 12 on the use variance and then go from there. If that were not to be approved, then we would probably not approve 13. So we'll start with that. And then if we do, we'll have a lot of the content that we can apply to 13. One thing to keep in mind for both, you'll have 15 minutes of time to present. There'll be 15 minutes for combined rebuttal. So as we have any rebuttal, please try not to repeat what others have said. And then there'll be 5 minutes each for response. I'm sorry?
Can everybody speak up a little bit louder? Sorry.
Yes,
Definitely didn't hear a word he said.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Toohey, make sure you've got the microphone, or that he has the microphone where we can hear him. And I'll do my best as well, so.
Is that better?
Yes. All right, Mr. Toohey, for docket 12, the use variance, tell us why you're here.
Okay. Good evening. As I said, I'm representing the Bowman family and the Kopetsky family enterprise, and we are respectfully requesting a variance of use for case number 2021-0112. Here with me tonight is John Mandebach from the Bowman Family Enterprises, and also Steve Fairbach, a traffic engineer with A&M Engineering. And we are requesting a variance of use on a 1.85 acre site at 49 Mercator Drive, which is where the Lotus Garden restaurant is, to be redeveloped and operated as a tunnel car wash. And so let's spend a minute on the site if we can. It's 1.8 acres. It's on your screen there. It's outlined in that blue highlighting. And as you can see, it's kind of an unusual site. It sets it very close to the intersection of 3 roads. Mercator Drive, that's the road that is running east and west, left to right on that screen. Then Madison Avenue is coming down from the north, which then connects into US 31. And then US 31 is along the western border of the site. So this site, as I said, is 1.8 acres, and I think it's been a Lotus Garden since about 1960. So that's about 60 years it's been on that site. And surrounding the site, if you go to the north, there's a retail center, and in that retail center, there's a Big Red Liquors, there's a mattress store, there's a Harbor Freight business. So kind of traditional kind of neighborhood retail center to the north. If you go across the street, you've got a Walgreens, a Burger King, a credit union, IU Credit Union, you've got a Rural King, you've got a car dealership. So it's sort of large, intense commercial uses. And by the way, this site is zone CL, which I think is short for commercial large, and we'll talk about that in a second. Then to the south of the site, you've got extra space storage, you have an auto zone, you have an enterprise, a car rental, and then you have a business called Lover's Lane. To the east of the site, you have a single family residential. So on 3 of 4 sides, you have fairly intense commercial uses, retail, car dealerships, extra space storage, various businesses. And then on the one side, we have a residential neighborhood. Here's a photograph of the Lotus Garden. As you can see that the site has a building on it. That building is about 8,000 square feet. It's actually over 8,000, about 8,300 square feet. The building we propose to build would replace it, and that building sets east to west. Our building would set north to south and be as far west on the site, that is away from the residences, as you could be on this site. And that our building is only about 6,000 plus square feet. It's also 25 feet tall at its tallest spot and maybe 20, 22 feet at its lower spot. It's a smaller building than what's there now. It also has a lot less asphalt, which you would again figure because at a restaurant, a sit-down restaurant, a full-service restaurant, we have lunch and dinner, you have a bar, you would have a place for a lot of cars to park. We don't have that, so we have more green space, which I'll show you in a minute. There's also a rather large sign. That sign is 30 feet tall. I think your ordinance allows for a 35-foot tall pylon sign. That sign's 30 feet tall, and we propose to replace it with a new modern sign, which is about half the size of it in terms of messaging space. It's the exact same height, it's 30 feet tall, but that's one of the variances which I'll skip over in a minute. I'll skip over to our next case. Again, the photograph, this is looking from Mercator to the west. You can see the Hubler business across the street, a Rural King, again, a photograph of the parking lot. This is directly south of our site, so that's the used storage place, extra space storage is what it's called. And then beyond that would be enterprise rental car, a auto zone, I think, a car parts place, and then the other business. This is a survey of the site, again, just to show the BZA. The building, the current building is only about 113 feet from the border with the residences. Our building is going to be closer to almost 200 feet from that border to the residence. I think we're about 195 feet. So we've pushed our building back to the west, closer to Madison Avenue and Highway 31, to keep it away from the residents. Again, you can see a pretty sizable asphalt parking lot on that site. Why we're here for a use variance, members of the board, is that even though in your ordinance, there's, I think a car wash is defined, a car wash is referred to in the ordinance, when you go to the use table, there's not a zoning category that specifically says, here's where you can have a car wash. So in use variances, the usual harder finding a fact, and I'll get into those in a second, to make is what's peculiar about this situation that requires use variance. Well, this is a very peculiar situation because you have a zoning ordinance that discusses the possibility of car washes, the existence of car washes, but yet you don't have a zoning classification that it falls into. And the site is zone CL, which is commercial large format. And in its definition, it says it's devoted to large-scale commercial uses. Car wash is certainly a commercial use. In buildings on lots generally larger than 80,000 square feet. That would be this case because you have about 1.8 acres, so that's more than 80,000 square feet. Along major commercial corridors, certainly we're on 31 in Madison and then Mercator. The two of those would certainly be considered major commercial corridors. They tend to draw customers from both inside and outside the city and have convenient access and greater visibility. The site has good access. We've had a traffic study done, and it has good visibility. And then it goes on to say the CL zone includes a number of complementary principal and accessory uses. We think that this proposed car wash fits pretty squarely is in a business that's contemplated by the purpose and definition of the commercial large zone. So how would we develop this and mitigate its effects on our residential neighborhoods to the east? The Bowmans and the Kopetskis with their engineers, Crossroad Engineering, came up with a plan that situates the building, the car wash building, so that the doors where you enter and the doors where you leave don't face the neighbors over to the right of that photograph that you're looking at. The doors face the north and the south. So the doors, as you come into the car wash, right behind there is the extra space storage space. And as you leave the car wash, the doors face the commercial shopping center I mentioned a minute ago. They also have located their dryers as close to the building as they can. And we've done a sound study that says that those dryers don't, actually another company, Harold's Car Wash Systems, did a sound study for a place in Lafayette. They've concluded that those dryers don't get to the ambient level of noise that traffic would generate when you get to the distance the neighbors are from the site. But maybe most importantly, between our car wash and our dryers, there's this large green area, which you can see in that site, and the planning staff asked us to agree to commit to, in addition to the landscape that is required under your ordinance, they asked us to commit to an additional 10 evergreen trees along our border, and we're willing to do that. So here's what the existing site looks like now. As you can see, it's a fairly large asphalt area, a little small green area over here. And this is what our site plan would look like. The building is further away from the residences than it is now. The parking area and the drying area is screened by landscaping, and it's separated by a considerable more distance than what the current restaurant is. I heard in our last hearing that you asked the petitioner to go through the findings of fact.
Yes, sir, and I'm happy to step us through those if you're ready.
I am.
Okay, number one, the approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community because?
Members of the BZA, I believe that
I'm going to ask you to get back to the microphone, Mr. Tilley.
Yeah, sorry.
There you go.
That finding, I believe, is met by these facts, that the areas north and west and south of the site are also zoned commercial large. They have there's a car dealership, a retail commercial center, a self-storage business, and a farm hardware store. We believe this car wash will be compatible with those existing commercial uses, and there's a 40-foot wide landscape buffer yard will be installed on the east side to screen the site from the residential neighborhood to the east. We respectfully suggest that the proposed use is less intense than other commercial uses that are permitted within the CL district, including car dealerships, drive-through restaurants, and indoor shooting ranges. So for those reasons, we believe this approval will not injure the health, safety, and morals of the community.
Okay. Number two, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner because?
I didn't say this in our presentation, but this represents a capital investment of between $6 and $7 million. This site is zoned commercial, and several properties, as I elaborated a minute ago, around the site are used for commercial and retail uses, including a car dealership and the Rural King. The use of this site as a car wash is compatible with those other nearby commercial uses, and our building will be located approximately 195 feet from the site's east property line, so a considerable further distance than the existing restaurant is in proximity to the residential neighbors. And we'll have a 40-foot landscape buffer that the restaurant doesn't have, and that will be installed to screen the residential uses. So for those reasons, the site is zoned CL now, and we think that this $6 or $7 million investment with that screening won't adversely affect the use and value of the properties.
Okay. And the need for the variance arises from some condition peculiar to the property involved because?
As I mentioned a minute ago, the site's zoned commercial large. Car wash is a commercial use. And while the car wash is a defined term in your Unified Development Ordinance, it's not a listed use within the use table in the Unified Development Ordinance. So the condition peculiar to this property is that even though the site has this commercial large format zoning classification, because the car wash is not specifically listed as a permitted use in any zoning district, without a use variance, the site could not be used as a car wash, which is a defined term in your UDO. So for those reasons, we think this is a very peculiar condition to this property.
Okay. Number 4, the strict application of the terms of the zoning ordinance will constitute an unusual and unnecessary hardship if applied to the property for which the variance is sought because?
Because the use of a car wash is not specifically listed in your, as a permitted use in your zoning district, without a variance, even though a car wash is contemplated to operate in Greenwood, without this variance, you couldn't develop a CL site with a car wash anywhere in the community.
Okay. And number 5, the approval does not interfere substantially with the comprehensive plan because?
I looked at the comprehensive plan, and the plan recommends commercial uses for the site. There's commercial uses on 3 borders of the 4 borders of the site. The car wash is a commercial use, and for that reason, we don't think it interferes at all with the comprehensive plan. We believe it's compatible with the comprehensive plan.
Okay, and then before we wrap up your part here, you are aware of the summary and proposed conditions from the staff, which is number 1, the use variance approval shall be applicable to this proposed project only and shall not run permanently with the land.
Yes, sir.
And then number 2, 10 6-foot large evergreen trees, which you have mentioned, shall be planted in the east buffer yard in addition to required landscaping to aid in year-round buffering of the car wash from the residential zone. If a fence is used to reduce the buffer yard, at least 1/3 of the total landscaping buffer yard requirement plus these 10 trees shall be in the area between the residential properties and the fence.
We agree with those 2 conditions.
Okay. All right, with that, then I will open it up to anyone who wishes to remonstrate.
Thank you.
If, let's see, how many do I have? If you would stand, if you would wish to speak. I've got 6 of you, okay. So again, you've got 15 minutes total, which will take us to 6:45. So as I call on you for your turn, please try not to repeat what someone else has said and just add to it, okay? And with that, I'm going to kind of go in order of location here. So sir, if you would like to step up and state your name and address for the record.
Robert Whiteside, 39 Ruby Terrace, Greenwood.
Okay, and tell us what you have.
Okay, I'm a lifetime Greenwood person, and I've lived in Greenwood Manor, which is the addition behind where the one car wash for 45 years. That road, Mercator, that it's on, was put in for the development of Greenwood Manor in the 50s. It was a residential road going to addition, Greenwood Manor. Since then, the Wildrow was put there, what is now called the Greenwood Center, I think. And when they redid the roundabout, put the roundabout in, the only way you could exit out of the north side of Wildrow is if you're going east. So the other 3 directions is all coming out on Mercator now. If you're on Madison Avenue coming south, there's a curve when you go onto 31. When you're trying to pull into Mercator off of Madison Avenue, you have to look around that curve and around those cars that's parked in there. You can't see now. I don't have a problem with a car wash per se. What I have a problem with is anything that has a large volume of traffic up to that area. And I believe a car wash is going to be put in there to have cars, and that's my main objection, is a safety factor.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. believe you were next. They were all sworn in.
Tracy Champion,
I'm sorry, just a little close to the microphone. Tracy?
Tracy Champion.
Okay.
142 Ursula Lane.
Okay.
It's also right there in the neighborhood. I think my big concern is, I'm a school bus driver for Greenwood, and as he was saying, with the traffic coming in and out, it is already horrible trying to come in and out of our neighborhood, and the school bus is gonna be worse because then you got a bunch of kids sitting behind you, and it's bigger, you're trying to pull out onto Madison. This is the only entrance and exit we have in our neighborhood. So, say the car wash backs up, now we have cars going wherever it is they're gonna go. Once they get out the parking lot, onto the street, or over into the Wilgrove Shopping Plaza, now you have that backed up, and you're gonna have cars just, okay, we can't get this way, so we're gonna cut through the parking lot now. That's gonna double even more traffic coming in and out, and it's gonna make it even harder for those of us who live there, or those of us who are trying to take kids in and out of the neighborhood. And as he was saying, you can't see around that curve half the time to turn into our neighborhood. And now we'll have more traffic to deal with too. And of course, the lovely roundabout that the majority of us in the neighborhood don't like because it has made it more dangerous. So that's my biggest concern, is just how we're gonna get that traffic flow through there. Us having one way in and one way out of our neighborhood is just not safe.
Okay, thank you. Raise your hands again if you had said. I'm coming this way. Yep, you, sir. I'll work my way back. Name and address for the record.
It's Greg Payne, and I also live back there in 110 Rose Lane. And unfortunately, you said not to repeat everything, which is pretty much already said. But I personally don't care about the trees. I think the site improvement would be better than building those gardens kind of run down, so that would look nicer. But even if you look at this drawing, I mean, we've all seen crew car wash on 31. When you get to March, when everybody's trying to get the salt off of their car, even that, I mean, it just backs up with the roundabout and the traffic that's on Smith Valley and 31 anyway. That already gets bound up when the lights on Smith Valley aren't in tune. So you're already getting blocked there. This is gonna be ridiculous, I think, personally, just get in and out of that neighborhood. I would feel a lot better if you're gonna do those entry and exit points, do it off of 31, not off of McCater, because it wasn't so bad when we could cut through the retirement community that's right there, because that was another way for us to get in and out, and emergency vehicles. But, you know, as everybody else has said, that's all we have. And the school buses, and in March, especially when everybody's trying to get the salt off their car, it's gonna back up, and then you're gonna have more people backed up to the roundabout trying to get in, which is gonna back the roundabout up, and it's just gonna be a gridlock situation. I personally, I like the Preston Car Wash. I think they do a great job, but that's not the right entry and exit. I mean, last week, somebody pulled out of the Lotus car and hit me on my motorcycle on my way home. So when you add, what's the standard volume for one of their car washes? 500 cars a day. You add that traffic right there, and that's the only way to get in and out. I think it's gonna be a bad situation.
Okay, thank you, sir. Yep, yes.
This might just be short enough for me.
See if you can
That
pull
would be
it,
my first.
see if you can pull it down at all.
I don't know if this is, you know what, my voice is gonna be loud enough, I think everybody can hear me.
All right.
Okay, I have a petition over here.
Well, state your name and address for the record first.
It is Roxanne Ballard, 130 Rose Lane, and I am part of the humble, hardworking neighbors that are here. I'm fired up. You guys have changed everything to where we can't get out. What is cool about us is we are humble, hardworking people, and we have to look at all of you for our future. And we pay our taxes, and we work hard. And what's really neat, we have a lot of young kids, a lot of young families. And you know why they moved here? Old Town Greenwood. Well, all of you people don't want Old Town Greenwood. You're changing it to Carmel, to Zion's, what we want it. We cannot get out. We have elders back there, we have ambulance, fire trucks that have to zip back there. They're not gonna be able to do that. This gentleman over here was talking about Rural King and all that. They have private entrance, okay? You have forgotten us. I invite every single one of you, and wherever the Zoom is, come walk our neighborhood. Come see what we're talking about. Wilbur Shopping Center, I'm always gonna call that. Believe it or not, there was a Standard, there was a donut shop there, there was a, I think it was Hags or Hooks. That's gonna tell you how long we've all been there. So we expect people to come in over there, because that's the way it was. A car wash, don't even entertain that. I can't believe that actually we're here. And I'm gonna tell you something, this is Voices, and we're not done. You allow a car wash, they've already bought that property, is what the Daily Journal stated. Well, they've already bought that, then they already believe they're gonna go ahead and put it up there. Now I have something real special here. I have a special guest. Actually, she's a guest to you guys, but she's a neighbor to us. And she lives at 101. Her name is Elaine, and she lives right the fence and Lotus Garden. And you're gonna put her regardless of a barrier or regardless of pine trees? The traffic is gonna be unbelievable, and you're gonna have children on Mercator that's gonna get hurt. And I got right here, a lady who has 30 grandkids and great-grandkids. And I'm gonna tell you right now, when we pull into Mercator, I don't think there's too many of us over here right now that almost has hit the kids because they run out. Please don't do this. If you are gonna, and you are, and this makes all of us sad because we have walked for years and years to the Lotus Garden, and it makes me sad. I'm about ready to start crying. All these people, and literally I have watched one guy age, walks every day to work hard. Have you ever cleaned dishes? Have you ever been a waiter or waitress? Because I have. And it's not an easy job. And by God, they come out and they do their job. And you guys have forced them out. If you're going to do this, and you are, then put a restaurant back in there. But don't do a car wash with all these car washes around. And you are welcome, although I doubt very much that you're going to read this, because there are some really good statements here. Now, I'm not the best in health right now. My legs are really weak, and I hoofed it today. Okay, so if I start wobbling, you know I have not been drinking. My legs are getting really bad. I'm going to tell you this. The main thing, quickly to summarize this, is traffic. We don't want it. We don't need it. We don't want it, period. The second thing is, not necessarily in this order, we are good people. We're hard workers. You have trapped us in, and there's going to be consequences that will be paid for that, because you will not be able to get what is needed back there for those of us that need an ambulance. We have a fire back there. We can't get out, and we're not supposed to do this. But those of us that have lived here all these years at the Greenwood Village, we could exit out that way. We could, not supposed to do this, go through Wilgrove. Well, that's been all. I said a prayer not to cuss and to keep my head, so give me just one moment. You can't get out, it's blocked off. I've almost hit that. I was in the hospital when this was made, okay? And I came out and I was like, oh my gosh. You've got added traffic already that's going to be in the middle school. For those of you that want this car wash, as respectfully as I can, move. Go to Carmel, Zionsville, Noblesville, Fishers. Go where they want that. Nobody's ran for the mayor for over 8 years in Carmel, okay? That's my grandson telling me the proper way of saying that. This is wrong. I don't care what his plans are or anything like that, and I appreciate him doing all this, of which I can't read. Again, you have Elaine over here, her house is right there. You're gonna have noise. You can't prevent the noise, and you can't prevent the traffic. All right, so we are coming to you and asking you to not do this. There was a variance for a reason. And that neighborhood was built in the 1950s. That's an old neighborhood. Old Town Greenwood, leave us alone. Just leave us alone. We're having a hard enough time getting in and out of there. And I'm gonna tell you this, we're not done fighting. So if you pass this, we're not done fighting. That's all I gotta say. Boy, are you lucky, because I really wanna go on. So thank you for your
Thank
time.
you. Appreciate it. If you would like, was it Ballard? Miss Ballard?
Who's that? Yes, Ballard.
If you would like to submit the
I do.
document you have into the evidence, we'd be happy to take it.
I do want to say one other thing. I have a gentleman, I don't know if he's here yet, he's supposed to be on Representative Ezra, if I said that right. Would you please stand?
Yeah, I was gonna say.
He has hooked it as best he can. Do you want this, or does?
Yes, no, we
this
absolutely would
okay?
take that into the record. Yep.
This
Sir,
goes
Mr.
on-
Ezra, then come on up.
this
We
goes
are
on-
we are at 3 minutes. I'm going to try to be
I
as,
want to show you. This goes on the back, people make statements, and I also have where I couldn't walk up the steps. Okay, thank you.
My name is Ezra Hill, live at 403 West Wiley Street, Greenwood, Indiana, 46142, and I'm the current city council rep for District 2. This project falls within District 2, and obviously there's some concerns. I've recently received a lot of phone calls and emails. Pretty much the main concern, I think, that I've established from talking to a variety of people is the traffic. So, you know, the biggest concern from the residents is additional traffic congestion in an already congested area. And as I'm sure you all know, this is a tricky traffic area, and the only way in and out is via Mercator Drive. You know, the overall project, I personally like. I think it looks good. I'm not against car washes in District 2, but I just think this specific location is going to create some difficult traffic problems. So I would just at this time ask that you deny the petitioner's request.
thank you, Mr. Hill. We still have a couple minutes. We're anxious to get up there.
I just wanted to say.
Name and address for the record first, please.
My name's Melanie Marsh, and I live at 112 Ursula Lane. The speed limit there on Mercator is 25, and I have a 7-year-old and a 4-year-old. They play on the street. We don't have any sidewalks in the neighborhood period. So either one, like put us in sidewalks, or 2, lower your speed limit, because my kids almost get hit daily when they're riding their bike. So I'm just saying, you know, like with all the traffic, I'm just thinking there's gonna be more traffic probably. Oh, well, we can't turn left out of the car wash, so let's go through the neighborhood and go 35, 40 miles an hour. So that's just a thought that I wanted to put out there about kids dying.
Understood. All right, we got 1 more minute. Anyone else? Yes, sir. And name and address for the record, please.
Dwayne Jackson, 115 Rose Lane. I mean, how many condos are you gonna be putting in right there on the other side of that roundabout? You're looking at 10 times more traffic just coming that way. You start putting it in that around rush hour, it already backs up past the park. You can't get out of there. I mean, the roundabout is dangerous. It's one of the highest wrecked places in the state. I mean, it's mad. And at least with a restaurant, people park, get out, and leave intermittently. A car wash, you're gonna have a steady stream of traffic going in and out. And it's just, it's congested enough, and they're coming out on Mercator. I mean, take them out on 31. It would have eliminated over half the traffic. So,
Thank you, sir. All right. Mr. Tucci, you have 5 minutes to answer.
Thank you. So, members of the Board of Zoning Appeals, this is Steve Fairbach. He's the president of A&F Engineering. He is a licensed engineer in the state of Indiana, and has been doing traffic studies for uses around central Indiana for going on 30 years. And we anticipated that the neighbors would be very concerned about traffic. And we worked with the planning staff and your city engineer to come up with a way to analyze what this would, how this would have an effect. And in a traffic memorandum dated June 10th, just this past June 10th, Steve and his company they went to the site, they looked at the capacity analysis of the site and the queue length, that's the length that the cars could queue up and wait before they got into the car wash. And they came up with 3 key conclusions, because really almost everybody spoke about traffic. In fact, some people said that Kopetsky's and the Bowman's run a nice wash, they just don't think this will really work at this site. One gentleman said they actually did a good job washing. That was good to hear. I've been through their wash, I agree with him. But the traffic report says the number of vehicles that are generated by this proposed use, and that's really what you got to look at, will not adversely affect the operations of the intersection of Madison and Mercator. That's the intersection that everybody was talking about, at Madison and Mercator. And Steve's did a study, and it concludes that's not going to be adversely affected. Second question was whether or not the access drive, the queue links of the Mercator and Madison, whether or not that would have a bad effect. Steve's analysis says, no, it will not affect the operations at the access drive. And then most importantly, the school bus driver mentioned this, that the internal queuing at the existing Kopetsky's car wash on 135 south of Smoky Road Road, this is actually a longer queue. There's more room for cars to stack on this site, and that will not spill into Mercator Drive. I'll let Steve summarize his findings, but I think that answers a lot of the questions.
I'm Steve Farabon, professional engineer licensed in the state of Indiana, office 8365 Keystone Crossing. Real quick, everything Brian just said is exactly right, what's in the study, but to get to those observations, we had to count traffic, and we did. And we used cameras, so we actually have videotape of what's going on out there. We count traffic at the intersections, counted traffic down at the existing site to see how many cars were entering and exiting that site, how many cars were in the queues and things like that. So it's not just anecdotal situation. We actually collect data out there, and Brian's actually right. So if we quickly talk about Mercator and Madison, we use level of service analysis, A through F, and A being free flow, F being gridlock. And what we found is after we add this traffic back on there, it comes out to level of service E, or level of service C, I'm sorry, and that's allowing people to turn left. And we know sometimes at Madison it does back up. So people sometimes will have to turn right, go up around the roundabout, and then they can go over US 31. So we recognize all that. One of the key things, though, that you have to look at is that restaurant generates vehicles today. And those vehicles are in the traffic counts that we picked up on Thursday and Saturday of the week before Memorial Day. So those cars are already there. And net gain of the restaurant during the peak hours is about 14 additional vehicles is all. So the traffic's already there. We're going to add additional 14 vehicles. Now, we didn't look at it that way. We took all of the car wash traffic and added on to what we found out there. So we actually added additional cars on top of the restaurant traffic that's already going in and out of that intersection.
All right, thank you. All right, and then we have 5 minutes. So
I'm just gonna do this real fast. What I'm about to tell you was, we have landscaping people, okay? They can't get out right now. And this is all fine and dandy, all these numbers. But we live there, we know, we don't have little cameras and we don't do a statistic. We live there, we know what's going on. Thank you, that's it.
Is there any way they can make the entrance off 31, like someone suggested? Because then maybe 31
I don't know the answer to that. That's a question I have when we get the public hearing closed, so I will ask that.
I got a question. Do I need to go up here?
Yeah, you have not spoken, Mr. Hommel.
I'm Kevin Hommel, address 108 Ursula Lane, Greenwood, Indiana. So like I say, and like a few people say, we're not against capacities at all. I'm looking at different ways, because like I say, I'm just me, but I look at photometrics, landscape, stuff like that, Greenwood's been well behind things on letting lighting come off the properties. There's no reason for any lighting, and, it's minimal. And I appreciate them, addressing the landscaping, so if it does go through, but, there was, he talks about it being better, that it's not a firing range, but a firing range is all inside. I see 20 airbags out there. Are those 20 airbags, even though they're only gonna be open from 8 to 8, are those 20 airbags 24-hour, or are they gonna shut them off at 8 o'clock to where you don't have people at midnight? Because yeah, there's a lot of traffic out there, but you know what? At 9 o'clock, you go out there and you don't hear traffic. It slows down. Airbags, they don't stop. So, yeah, there's not a lot of noise. They did a good job with pushing the building as far as they could from our addition. But, like I say, the lighting, the traffic's always gonna be an issue. I realize that gets worse every year. But, like I say, there's, it'd be nice to have a little grocery store or something else of it. But if it's gotta be, then like I say, make sure we've got plenty of trees, minimal lighting, stuff like that. So that's all I got.
Thank you, sir.
To add to his report about the traffic, how he added the restaurants traffic in there, he added restaurant traffic from a coronavirus situation that was minimal and less patrons than it was allowed to have. That's in a normal situation. Everything being back open is different. And you can't tell me that they're only adding 14 cars, plus they're going off the numbers from the other Kopetsky's. It's down off 135. That's only a 2-lane road that has not near the traffic volume that 31 and Madison Avenue have right there at that intersection. Keep that in mind.
Okay. All right, I'm going to close the public hearing. Open it up to the board. Mr. Foster.
I have no questions.
Ms. Peters.
No questions at this time.
Mr. Smith.
No questions at this time.
Mr. Polar. Mr. Polar, are you there? Do we know if we lost?
Sorry, no, I'm here. Sorry, I was muted. I have no questions.
All right, so I do have some questions. I guess Ed or whoever would address this, as far as the entry option off of 31, has that been looked at? Can someone explain why that may or may not have been an option?
I don't know, I can't speak for our engineering department, but that would be state highway jurisdiction. The city couldn't say, yeah, you have to do this or need to do that. If someone would have to petition NDOT to look at that, but knowing that triangle in that area, I would be amazed if NDOT would allow such a thing, that location.
Okay. My next question is, as far as car washes not being specifically identified, is there anywhere where there is guidance on where a car wash might be located?
Yes, we have 2 classes of automotive service facilities in our ordinance. One's major, one's minor. Was interpretation that car washes are minor, but that would put it into a commercial medium zoning, and we're talking about a site that's commercial large.
Okay, so it would be normally applicable here in this type of a zoning.
The way our zoning works, it's not cumulative, so it would be allowed in commercial medium, not commercial.
Which is why they need the variance. Okay. So to then
our new zoning looks more at lot size. So that would be the distinction.
So moving to commercial large, can you explain to us and the folks here what alternative types of businesses that may have heavier traffic could end up in there without any kind of variance?
Yes, certainly your restaurants, your box stores, any sort of kind of a
light, I wouldn't say fulfillment, but one of these delivery centers could certainly operate out of there. Our commercial large is our most intense use category. Anything you see around the mall, that's commercial large.
So when you talk about restaurants, we're talking about restaurants that would have a drive-through
Yes.
and generate a line of cars similar to the car wash.
A restaurant with a drive-through would be allowed to.
Mr. Tucci, what is the queuing allowance that you have provided?
It's 30 spaces, 30 deep.
So you can queue 30 cars at a time before you're even
Yes, sir.
overloading the queue? Okay. Seems like a very large number of cars for a
30
car wash.
car spaces, yes. This person's asking me about 30 feet, it's 30 spaces.
30 spaces. So you get multiple cars, 3 wide or however wide you go, and then you narrow it down into the car going into the car wash, a single car coming out at a time.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. What are the hours of the airbags? That's a good question. Are they similar to car wash hours, or are they 24 or intended to be?
I'm John Mandevach with Bowman Family Holdings, and K-Wash Real Estate and Konvetsky Auto Wash. The vacuums are only open or running during the car wash, and they're also on what's called VFD drives, so they only ramp up to peak when they are in peak use, which is very rare if you look at the existing site. And so they would ramp up on use, and then they ramp back down at, say, like an idle when they're not being used. That is intentionally to minimize the impact of them, but also there's a study that says that beyond 30 feet with the brand of vacuums that we are using, beyond 30 feet, they're the same as the ambient noise. And I think that was submitted with the report to staff.
Thank you, sir. I think that's everything I had out of there. Yeah, so I appreciate everyone's comments and testimony tonight. I certainly appreciate all the passion from the residents, understand your concerns. When we look at this again, whatever the decision is tonight, it could be another facility that is similar or worse in traffic. So we have to understand what we've been presented here as far as the studies, but.
Mr. President, sorry to interrupt. Would you mind if I ask a couple questions as well?
Absolutely.
The first question is for Director Davis. Mr. Davis, is it true that the vehicle sales, automobiles, or other vehicle sales are allowed in commercial large under our use table?
I'm sorry, I can't hear a word you guys are saying.
Yeah,
I apologize. I'll speak up a little bit.
Yeah, thank you, because it's important that we can
Sure,
hear what's
absolutely.
being said up there.
My question is for Planning Director Davis. The question is vehicle sales business allowed in commercial large zoning under our table of use?
That's correct, yes.
And in your experience, would a car wash within the such facility be considered an accessory use and allowed in CL, commercial large?
As an accessory use, to say Tom Wood installing their own car wash?
Yes.
Yes,
So that would be allowed, okay.
yes. And if you look at our car dealerships, a number of them do have their own wash system.
Would you say it's pretty common for a car dealership to have their own car wash on site?
Yes.
And just a follow-up question to representatives of the applicant. You indicated that the queuing line is about 30 spaces to queue, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
What would be the average number of cars during your busy season at a time? If you know that information, I know it's speculative.
Yes, we do have that information. There was another piece, there's a second answer to that question. this car wash system, if you've been to the one on 135, has a proprietary system where it reads the license plate. The reason I'm even bringing that up is their technology, it's the only one in the state of Indiana has that. It moves the cars through faster than the other major operators in the community. In fact, it moves the cars faster by about 50%. So in an average day, we would have how many washes?
Around 350 to 400 per day.
That'd be for the time period of when they were open the 14 hours ago.
Thank you.
I have, I guess, one more process question then. If the board denied the request, what would happen next from the petitioners, and would they have to come back again to the zoning, but would the council be able to, I'm just trying to understand who else would be able to weigh in on this type of request?
So you denied it?
I can address that.
I'd let him answer that one.
If a request is denied, the petitioner may appeal it to one of the county courts in Franklin, Indiana, and Johnson County courts. Also, the petitioner may petition council to add that use to the table of uses. That's also will be possible, but that's a different determination altogether. It's a different act rather from a petitioner, independent from these proceedings.
Okay.
They could also petition for a rezone from the council.
All that.
That was my
To go to the CM,
question.
to the
So that
CM.
they could petition for a rezoning, which may or may
That
not.
process would go through the plan commission to the council, wouldn't come through this board.
I'm
I
sorry.
guess I got one
I
question.
apologize, I can't hear, and I'm really, as you know, I'm passionate. I can hear your voice, sir. And I'm really-
So the question was, what would be next if this board, which is strictly the use variance request, were to not allow it? They would be able to take it, they could take it to the council to ask for a rezoning. They could take it to court, those kind of things. I'm just trying to understand what is
So
next.
This is not the final.
No.
Okay, the next one is listed here on the 28th, is that correct?
For the zoning, and that would simply be, if it's approved tonight, we would take final action for the zoning board on the project. So our purpose here is simply to determine if the use variance is warranted. It's not whether we think a car wash should be there or not be there. Is the case warranted for the use variance based on the conditions that they have spoken to tonight?
When do we get to come back before you do whatever? Do you have one more where you're going to allow the public to voice, or?
Not with the zoning. So
Ms.
On
Miller,
this issue right here, do we have one more?
Ms. Bellard, I must clarify, I guess, that the right to appeal is both for the petitioner and the remonstrators. So it is up to individuals to take this matter to the next level if they want to, if they wish. That right is equal for both petitioner and the remonstrators.
God bless you, you've got such a quiet voice, you really do, and God bless you, but I really, I'm admitting this in front of God and all of you, I guess I need hearing aids. I've been fighting against it, but I can't hear. I have one question to summarize this. Do we have another chance before this is guaranteed?
Is there any other, is there a planning commission or any other?
No, not for the.
There is no public hearing after this.
Because I need to know if I need to find a lawyer that will help all of us in our
That's what they're
neighborhood.
saying.
That's what-
Yeah, no, that is the next step, is you
Okay,
would have the
so
right
that
to
has-
appeal to a court, right?
Yeah,
Correct.
it wouldn't be to
All right,
us.
thank you.
Now, I did have one question to follow
But
up
can I
on
add
the,
one important point to what she's asking about? Nobody else has mentioned it. Whether the petitioner would want to appeal a denial or whether you would want to appeal an approval, you have to file that within 30 days of the date of this board's final action.
That's today, 30 days from today?
No, The final action would be whenever they adopt their written findings, which would be at the next meeting 2 weeks
How
from tonight.
do we know that? How do we know what?
We just told you.
Yeah, it would be in 2 weeks.
I'm sorry.
So you would have 30 days from our meeting in 2 weeks.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. All right, question, Ms. Peters.
Okay, and sort of like a tangent on what Mr. Canarsie asked earlier. If Hubler decided they wanted to have the car wash in this location, they have a choice and there's nothing more that we would have anything to do with, right?
No, that's not the case.
No, but I mean, if they would have
Well,
done
no,
that,
if
yeah.
Hubler could say their Acura store or their Mazda store, they wanted to put a car wash, you know, in one of their service bays to wash vehicles for their lot, they would be allowed to do that. They could not come in and build a freestanding.
Okay, that's where I was going, trying to find out if they would say, okay, I want this at this location, would they be okay to do it without coming to us?
The only way that would work is if Hubler bought the piece of ground or any of the other dealers and put up a new dealership. And as
Okay.
part of that, it had
Got
the car wash use.
I just want to make sure I was clear, because it was kind of inferred there, you know, had it been part of a dealership issue, it really wouldn't be for us to look at. But it would have to be actually physically conjoined with the dealer. Got it.
Have to be an accessory use
Yeah.
for that dealership.
But the way he said it had to be physically adjacent to, yeah. Got it. No problem.
I'm sorry, real fast. The difference is that's a private business that would only be washing the cars that they either sell.
Yeah, we know that, yeah.
Not
that-
a public facility that has
Right.
1,000 cars coming through.
Right.
All right. Are all the notices and receipts in order?
Yes, they are. And fine.
All right, I will take a motion to accept them.
Mr. President, I move that we admit all the evidence presented in regard to this matter, including notices, receipts, maps, photographs, written documents, petitioner's application and attachments, petitioner's detailed statement of reasons, staff report prepared by the planning department, certified copies of zoning ordinance and comprehensive plan, testimony of the petitioners, any planning staff or demonstrators, and any and all exhibits presented, be they oral or written, for consideration by this board in regard to this petition, and to include the testimony of those present this evening.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Foster, second by Ms. Peters. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Mr. Smith
Yes.
and Mr. Polar.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0 to accept all of the notices and receipts and testimony. I will take a motion on the request itself.
I'll move to deny the request.
We have a motion to deny. Do I have a second? If I do not get a second, what's the process?
I'll second.
Is that Mr. Smith?
Correct.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Foster to deny BZA 2021-12, and I have a second by Mr. Smith. All those in favor of the denial, raise your right hand. Okay. All opposed, same sign. Mr. Polar, are you a yes?
I am a no to the denial.
And then Mr. Smith?
I am a no to the denial as well.
Okay, so the motion fails 3-2.
4-2. 4-1. 4-1.
Oh, 4-1. Sorry.
Smith reversed himself.
Mr. Smith was a no, sorry, okay. So motion fails 4-1. So do I take another motion then? I will take another motion.
A motion that we approve the request with the conditions indicated in the staff report.
And those are the
The
use,
use variance approval shall be applicable to the proposed project only and shall not run permanently with the land, and 10 6-foot large evergreen trees shall be planted on the east buffer yard. In addition to the required landscaping to aid in year-round buffering of the car wash from the residential zone. If a fence is used to reduce the buffer yard, at least 1/3 of the total landscaping buffer yard requirement plus these 10 trees shall be on the area between the residential properties and the fence.
so I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
I will second that.
Mr. Polar? Okay, so motion by Ms. Peters, second by Mr. Polar to approve with the two conditions. All in favor of that, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Mr. Smith
Yes.
and Mr. Polar?
Yes.
That motion carries 4-1. We will take final action on that in 2 weeks. And then you'll be able to move forward from there, Mr. Tucci. And I need a motion to, sorry, I was reading. A motion to adopt the written findings of fact.
Chairman, having considered the statutory criteria, I move that we direct the Corporation Counsel's Office to draft written findings of fact regarding our decision on the variance request presented in variance petition number BZA 2021-012. Said findings to specifically incorporate the staff report and the evidence submitted into the record for consideration and adoption by the Board of Zoning and Appeals as our final decision and final action regarding this petition at our next meeting.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Peters, second by Mr. Foster. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Pollard?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. Okay, so next up is BZA 2021-13, which is the dimensional variance, multiple dimensional variances by the same petitioner for the same project regarding signage. Regarding building designs.
Several different design standards.
I'm gonna say one thing and then I'm gonna leave it. When we look at this woman's face, if that doesn't say everything and everything about what you're gonna be voting.
Which be ashamed of yourselves.
Might even have a meeting.
You guys don't care anything about the residents that live in that neighborhood.
Gotta do what you want to do.
Care nothing about us, it's all about
Because
thank
it's one of the legal systems that nobody, Mario always wins.
Thank you for the one person who did much for us.
Do you have the 6 descriptions of the 6?
I believe so, right?
Yes.
And also, you have your ballots, you get assigned those, okay?
Yes.
Yes.
It's 6 dimensional variance requests. And on the staff report, I did just cover them by each one, so under requests, there are page 6 to organize that since there were
So many.
so many.
Okay, Kevin. Okay,
Do you know if the responses are exactly the same on all 6?
yes. The responses are identical. And there's,
Yeah.
Okay.
yes, we're definitely going to. All right. All right, Mr. Tucci.
Are the petitioner's responses, if they're the same for all 6?
Yes,
That they are different.
they're different for each.
They're all specific to the variance at hand. So the whole sign would be specific to the full sign, the building material would have its own, and so on. I'm sorry, I misheard your statement.
There's somebody doing.
All right. So again, we need to do swearing in again, because it's completely, all right. So all those wishing to speak on behalf of this, please stand and raise your right hand and be sworn by our secretary.
You swear and oath to use the perjury you testimony about you is true to the best of your knowledge.
All right, Mr. Tucci, let's talk about the 6 development dimensional variances, starting with number 1.
Yes, sir. Can I say for the record that I would incorporate by reference my remarks in our hearing we just finished, so that I don't have to repeat for you folks what I already told you?
Yes, I would like to avoid as much repetitiveness as we can.
Thank you. Thank you for your consideration of the prior proposal. The development variance relates to 6 items for this car wash, and it's specific to this car wash. And the first development variance is for overhead doors. So the ordinance does not allow for overhead doors in this area. And in order to get into a car wash, we think that it's the only way to really do it efficiently is to have an overhead door at the entrance and an overhead door at the exit. And the efficient operation is really important to these people. I mentioned briefly in my prior presentation, this car wash has a belt in it, not a chain. So your car gets on it, and it, first off, it quickly goes through the pay windows where you don't actually have to have interaction with a human. You can, but once you get into the system, it has this reader mechanism that reads the license plate, and so it knows what kind of car wash you want, it knows who you are, and it knows where to charge the car wash to. So the movement of cars is much quicker than their competitors. And then when you get into the wash, you don't hook up to a chain device. There's a slow-moving belt that runs through the car wash, but you have to go through an overhead door to get on that, and then exit through an overhead door. So we have overhead doors. We've asked for a variance in development standards to have 2 overhead doors, one on the south, one on the north, but they located them, as you can see in this drawing, so they would not face any of the residences. They would face the commercial to the north and the commercial to the south. So that's the first variance for the overhead door. The second variance, and this illustration shows what that would look like. There's the overhead door on the south side next to the storage space. The second variance relates to the building it's a high-tech operation. It's quickly through there. It processes the payment quickly, and so it's a modern design. And with a modern design, they respectfully asked for a variance from the standards, so they would have more metal cladding on the building, so they would match the building that was approved at 135 and Smoky Row Road. These variances, a couple of these are very similar to variances that were granted on 135 and Smoky Row Road. And part of the reason, members of the BZA, is that this building is their signature building. It's like, as you drive down the street, you come to recognize a Starbucks building, you come to recognize a Panera's building, you certainly recognize a Chick-fil-A building, you recognize a McDonald's. This is their design, it's their trademark, it's their image, and so this image has a more modern feel to it, and that's the reason for the variance on the metal cladding. The same thing is true on the front elevations about masonry. There is masonry on the front elevation and along the sides of the building, as you can see in this, and at the exit. So what you call the front or the back, the front being the entrance and the back being as you exit. There is masonry, but there's also a lot of architectural metal. There's a lot of glass that is their image and is a pleasing image. The evidence of that is the existing facility has been very successful at 135 and Smoky Row Road. So they've asked for a variance on the masonry. The key variance, it seems to me, is the request to encroach, and that is in the right-of-way along 31. They were very sensitive with their engineer, Greg Elko, in designing the site so that the car wash would be as far from the residential neighbors as possible. And in order to do that, just the portion of the pay lane and a slight portion of the building encroach into that setback. And so we've asked for a variance along 31 to keep that building as far westward on the site as we can. That's 4 of the variances. Then the 5th variance is the metal grill and the air vent. So this shows, this diagram that's in front of you, that shows the building. That would be the view from 31. That's the west side of the building. And in order to dissipate the air and the heat in a manner so it doesn't go out to the east where our neighbors are, they've asked to have a metal grill and this metal paneling along this west border, and that's what this photograph rendering depicts, and also shows the north elevation. That would be the exit elevation of the car wash. What is it going to look like? It's going to look like the building on 135 and Smoky Row Road, and that's a picture of the entrance to that building. In fact, you can see at the center of that door, you can see that red belt. That's where your car gets on and it pulls you through the wash. You can see there's masonry, there's the pay lanes, and this is the architectural metal and panels that make up their design. This shows that air vent right there in the center of that photograph to the right of that light pole, and that's going to be on the side facing 31. The last variance of development standards they see is a pole sign variance. So the existing sign for the Lotus Garden is 30 feet tall, and it has about 200 square feet of message in it. And by that I mean where it says Greenwood Center, Lotus Garden, Chinese restaurant. That's what I'm calling the message area. Our sign is considerably smaller than that. It's about 100 square feet less. It's the exact same height, but it's 100 square feet less. So we think it's much less impactful on the streetscape there. And we would propose to take down this Greenwood Center Lotus Garden sign and put this same height sign, smaller message board up in its place. So the variances of development standards are front elevation to include metal grills, reduced masonry, more metal cladding than permitted under the ordinance, a street facing elevation include overhead doors, and part of the proposed canopy and where you pay are located within the 40-foot setback, not the building, just where you pay and the canopy. And they would replace an aging pole sign with a new, smaller sign. The staff, has asked us for 2 conditions. I'm sorry, that's in the use variance, which we agreed to. So the staff reviewed our findings of fact. They concluded that they had no objections to our statement of reasons. They recommended approval with the conditions that the variance be only applicable to this proposed project and would not run permanently to the land. We agreed with that condition. And so in summary, we respectfully ask for a variance of use to allow for new development and use of the site. We've asked for development standards to allow for construction of a proven car wash design on an unusually shaped site. We've asked for a variance of development standards to replace a large pole sign structure with a smaller structure. This is a significant investment. It's between $6 and $7 million. So we'll take down a building that was built in 1960. We'll build a much smaller building, a couple thousand feet plus smaller, and it'll be new assessed value. I think this is something that's worth considering. The assessed value on that site now is about $550,000. That includes the restaurant and the land and everything else. This investment will be $6 to $7 million. So there's quite a tax benefit for this development. The variances will allow for a convenient car wash in a commercial area. They've located the car wash as far away from the residential neighbors as practical. It will be screened and buffered from their neighbors, and the traffic memorandum we discussed with Mr. Fairbach. For those reasons and the reasons set forth in the staff report, we would respectfully ask for your fair consideration. Thank you.
All right, so we do need to go through the statutory criteria. I'm going to ask, this is obviously submitted in the record, right, the staff report. So we have the written individual findings. Mr. Tucci, for time considerations, I'm going to ask that you don't necessarily have to read your specific answers that are on the paper, but if you could give a response that incorporates each of these to the statutory criteria collectively, we can go through this once. Number one, the approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, or general welfare of the community because
there is an existing car wash facility that's very similar to this, looking at State Road 135, that uses the same exterior materials and design, and the architects are the same. There has been no injury to the health, safety, and morals of the city from that car wash.
Number two, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner because
the building is designed so it is the furthest possible distance from the residential neighbors, and it represents an investment of $6 to $7 million that will be complementary to the existing commercial uses, and the commercial large uses would allow other kinds of commercial uses more intense than this one.
Number three, the strict application of the terms of the zoning ordinance will result in practical difficulties in the use of the property because
the petitioner without the variances would be prevented from building a car wash with aesthetically pleasing modern materials and a design that is essentially the same used in an existing car wash, which was approved by the BZA.
And number four, I will handle, which is the structure is not regulated under Indiana Code 8-21-10-3 for hazard air navigation. Okay. Anyone else wishing to speak on behalf? Okay. Any remonstrators? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Questions from the board? Mr. Foster?
Is the car wash on 135 in the city?
Yes, sir. We came through the Board of Zoning Appeals with that project also.
Ms. Peters?
Just one point of clarification. The way I'm reading the one petition for the encroachment, if we look at the actual distance from anything outside of that property, it's gonna be more than 40 feet, so it's just, they're only looking at, the law says within 40 feet of the property line is, but, okay. So I don't see.
Correct.
Thank you.
The city owns a
The
vacant
rest of-
parcel with a path along 135 that.
The city's not gonna object.
Mr. Smith?
Nothing from me.
Mr. Pollard?
No questions.
All right, all notice and receipts in order?
Yes, Mr. President.
I'll take a motion to accept them into the record.
Mr. President, I move that we admit the evidence presented in regard to this matter, including the notices, receipts, maps, photographs, written documents, petitioner's application attachments, petitioner's dated statements of reasons, staff report prepared by the planning department, certified copies of the zoning ordinance comprehensive plan, testimony of the petitioner, city planning staff, and remonstrators, and any other exhibits present, be they oral or written, for consideration by the board in regard to the petition, and include testimony of those present today.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Foster, second by Ms. Peters. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Pollard?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. Okay, we do have 6 individual ballots that we need to vote on or make a motion on. We'll start with number 1 for the variance of development standards from section 10-3-14 D side elevations in order to have overhead doors on the north and south sides of the petitioner's proposed car wash.
Chairman, a motion that we approve the request for variance?
Second.
Motion by Ms. Peters, second by Mr. Foster, quickly with the condition that is listed.
Yes.
That shall not run permanently with
Right.
land. Okay. Motion by Ms. Peters, second by Mr. Foster. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Pollard?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. Second request is the variance of the standards to allow petitioner to build a car wash with the materials and design substantially in conformance with the exterior elevation.
Chairman, I motion to approve the request with the condition that staff report.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Peters, second by Mr. Foster to approve with the condition. All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Pollard?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. Number 3 is the variance of the commercial building design standard.
Chairman, I motion that we approve the request.
With the condition?
with the condition
Okay.
indicated in the staff report.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Peters, second by Mr. Foster. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Fuller?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. Number 4, request a variance of the commercial large format zone development.
Chairman, I motion that we approve this request with this condition in the staff report.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Peters, second by Mr. Foster to approve with the condition. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Fuller?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. Number 5, request a variance of the development standards from section 10-3-14D.
Chairman, I motion that we approve the request with the condition indicated in the staff report.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Peters, second by Mr. Foster to approve with the condition. All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Fuller?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. And number 6, a request for a variance of the installation of a pole sign.
Chairman, I motion that we approve the request with the condition in the staff report.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Peters, second by Mr. Foster to approve with the condition of staff report. All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Foster?
Yes.
I'm sorry, Mr. Polar.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. Long neck. Okay.
Sir, I moved, having considered the statutory criteria, move we direct the Corporation Counsel's Office to draft written findings of fact regarding our decision on the variance requested presented various petition B 2021-13. Said findings specifically incorporate staff report and evidence submitted under the record for consideration adoption by the Board of Zoning Appeals in our final decision, final action regarding this petition at our next meeting.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Foster, second by Ms. Peters. All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Polar?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Can I ask for a point of clarification on your first motion and your last one?
Sure.
One where you placed all the evidence testimony to the record that applied to all 6?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Thanks.
Same way with the findings that applies
Yes.
to all 6? Thank you.
Yes, thank you for that.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the meeting. Thank you very much.
Yes, we'll take final action in a couple weeks, and you should be good to continue moving forward, working with the planning department.
Thank you, your staff's been terrific work, so thank you.
Thank you. Any new business from the floor? Seeing none, any announcements? None. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So
Motion
moved.
to adjourn.
We are adjourned for June 14th, 2021, Board of Zoning Appeals. Microphones off.